when we hit COVID back in March 2020, my institution, PCOM, an institution devoted solely to education in the health sciences, created a task force and a smaller rapid response team to address issues very quickly. I was privileged to be asked to serve on both of those groups. So I read everything about COVID, coming from the CDC to Georgia Department of Public Health, GNR Health, and listening to Dr. Arona and the governor's office executive orders and reading everything I could get my hands on. I was on it, man. My family and I, we were compliant. We were wearing masks. We washed hands. We were physically distanced. We tested for COVID on multiple occasions after potential possible exposures. My wife closed her small retail business for 6 months to ensure that her team members remained safe. And when we closed our campus to instruction here at PCOM, I worked from home. My wife and I cooked and we ate, and I gained 15 pounds. And then in mid-December, we kind of relaxed, if you will, the activities associated with campus activities, and we reopened on a somewhat open basis. And so on campus on December the 16th, I arrived for a conversation with some of our team members about how we would test students coming back from the Christmas holidays for COVID. On Thursday, I go to vote in the special U.S. Senate election. And while standing in line, I began feeling unwell. Fever by the end of the day was up to 103.5. On Friday morning, I go to get tested for flu and COVID. The nurse practitioner comes in and says, "Good news, Mr. Ginn, you do not have the flu. The bad news is you have tested positive for COVID." But how can that be? I know I've read everything there is to read about COVID almost that's out there for laymen. How could that be? I just don't understand that. Well, after a weekend of high fever of 103 degrees and flu-like symptoms beyond measure and developing an insidious cough, Monday comes along and my next door neighbor, an orthopedic surgeon, calls and says, "Bryan, how you doing? How you feeling?" I said, "Well, I'm making it. I'm just continuing to pop in the drugs that they gave me." And he said, "Well, do this for me. Come over to my office and let me get an x-ray of your chest." So I go over there reluctantly, and by the time I get home, this physician friend calls and says, "Listen, Bryan, I'm just calling to tell you, if you don't go to the hospital right now, you will die within a week." That's pretty heady information for somebody who's just feels that they have a little bit of a bug going on. And thus began my 16-day inpatient COVID experience and my recovery that actually continues today, 9 months later. Remdesivir, convalescent blood plasma, and other therapeutic cocktails were the order of the day. Physical therapy, occupational therapy while inpatient, respiratory therapy at all hours of the day and night. Pulmonologist, cardiologist, internist galore. I think I've seen every medical specialty over the last many months that you could imagine. A medical team that was absolutely amazing. But the real fact of that medical team is that most of those medical team members, probably 85% of those medical team members who cared for me, who took care of me, but actually cared for me, did not look like me. That was an amazing experience to be cared for and cared about by so many people who did not look like me. Amazing professionals, angels in every sense of the word. Angels to include the environmental health and safety staff and the nutrition staff who came in daily to take care of my every need at that particular point in time. Absolutely amazing. The next shocker occurred when my pulmonologist came in and said, "We want to give you a second round of convalescent COVID blood plasma." I argued, which is what I do. I run the administrative aspects of medical school. I argue with physicians. And so I argued with him. I haven't seen that anywhere in my research and in any of the things that I've read. And he looked at me square in the eye and he says, "Bryan, let me just shoot straight with you. We don't know what else to do. We don't know what else to do for you. You are within 12 to 24 hours from intubation, and we don't know what else to do." That thought kept ringing in my mind. And so very quickly, I'm pretty quick, I think, for the most part. And I raised up my arms and said, "Well, which arm do you want to put it in?" Fortunately, going through the double doors at the end of the hall in the wing that I was on, the COVID wing, where the intubation unit was not required, as the markers started changing once they administered that second round of convalescent COVID blood plasma. And thankfully, after spending Christmas and New Year's in the hospital without family, the most difficult thing about this at all was being there somewhat alone, even though you had this amazing care team, being there without family and without knowing, because they wouldn't tell me, and they didn't tell me that my wife also had COVID at home, but was thankfully not as severe of a case. So I came home on January the 5th, spent the next 5 months on oxygen, on home-based physical therapy, sitting in my leather chair, watching the events of January the 6th unfold at the Capitol. As devastating and depressing as that was part of the recovery process to vent and to be there to watch those activities taking place. And as someone who loves politics and loves good government, just to be devastated and depressed by not only my personal situation, but what I was seeing occurring in our country. I recover still. Persistent cough still exists. Lethargy and fatigue is still there and still prevalent. Stamina, I can only play 14 holes of golf and I'm done. Can't quite get a full 18 holes in. I recently had to have my gallbladder removed. Not sure if that was caused from my years of eating Southern cuisine or results from COVID. We'll tag that up to life, perhaps. But folks, I'm going to tell you, COVID fog is very real. It is very, very real. So I would leave with you today as I work through my COVID fog here this morning, the takeaways. Although I lost 30 pounds, I don't recommend COVID as a diet of choice. The absence from family when sick is devastating and is totally depressing and is consequential. And so once being back at home and being able to be with family, you feel better immediately. Medical bills totaling over $125,000 to date. A solid care team is so very important. So I urge and highly recommend each one of us, each one of our family members, to secure a primary care physician. You need a primary care physician to work through the myriad of issues should COVID come into you or your family's life. Physical distancing, wearing masks, washing hands, these work. These are aspects that work. Vaccinations are important. Although I was lit up, as my primary care physician says, by the virus and COVID blood plasma, I received my first dose exactly 90 days after discharge from the hospital, the first day I was eligible. I donated COVID blood plasma to help others. I consistently wear my pulse oximeter to check, and I'm delighted to tell you today that I'm at 98% blood oxygen level, but I carry this with me everywhere I go just to check and be sure. And then I will tell you that the things that help you get through a situation like this are family and friends, colleagues, videos that people send to you, social media, my Rotary Club, joining with my colleagues here at PCOM to send videos. And then I would simply suggest to you as the primary takeaway today, trust the science. Trust the science. My brother-in-law, a gentleman, a small business owner in South Georgia who has no scientific background. When I asked him recently, I said, well, yeah, you've already been vaccinated, so life is good, right? And he said, well, no, I haven't been vaccinated yet. I had COVID, but I haven't been vaccinated. And I said, wow, Bill, he said, well, I'm doing my research. And I said, Bill, and I can talk to him because he's a member of the family. I could not talk to someone on my campus this way, but Bill, you know, let me just put it to you this way after what I went through. Let me just suggest to you that as you do your research, go ahead and prepare your will, because you never know when COVID will hit. And I can't think of anything more direct to say to someone in my inner circle as direct as that. Plan for the future if you don't take care of opportunities that you have now. Finally, I would say to you again, as the AJC says it best this morning in the front page of the AJC, get vaccinated as its headline, saves lives. Get vaccinated, saves lives.